Ottawa has banned George Galloway from entering the country, claiming he supports a recognized terror group.
And wallahi, we carried a lot of cash here. Whatever we brought, we will give tomorrow, inshallah, at 10 o'clock in the morning. We will give all our vehicles, our keys, our aid, our money to Ismail Haniyeh.
Canada should not be a piggy bank, really, for international terrorist financiers such as George Galloway.
Maybe the American government, the British, and the Israelis don't recognize Ismail Haniyeh as Prime Minister of Palestine, but we recognize Ismail Haniyeh as the Prime Minister of Palestine. And he is our Prime Minister also. Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh. Here is the money.
He raises money for terrorists. He gives moral and financial support for groups that are banned in Canada. He said very positive things about the Taliban.
I have never, in a long life of listening to George Galloway, heard a single sentence out of his mouth that I believed.
According to Mr. Galloway's own admission, earlier this month, he provided financial and corporeal support to Hamas, an organization which deliberately targets and kills innocent civilians and is therefore illegal in Canada.
Hamas supporter, anti-war campaigner, Big Brother clown, and, as of today, infandus street corner Cromwell. The flowery description given to the Honourable Member for Bethnal Green and Bow by Canada's Immigration Department. Its spokesman made it very clear today that Mr Galloway was not welcome there. In case you were wondering, infandus means too odious for words.
Mr. Galloway is on the record bragging about providing financial support to Hamas, an organization which is a banned terrorist organization in Canada. It's actually quite odious, and I think it's entirely appropriate for our security agencies to say that if they have advance notice that Mr. Galloway is going to come to Canada to pee on our carpet, that we should deny him entry to the home.
Just last week, Mr Galloway was in Gaza, handing over money and vehicles to Hamas officials. He told them,
and we will hand it to Ismail Haniyeh.
Galloway donated thousands of dollars to Hamas. Hamas is on Canada's list of terrorist groups.
Here is a man who undoubtedly, and we know this for a fact, we know it through his own words, and anybody can look this up on YouTube, thanks to the glory of technology, where he has said, I give money to terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. As far as I'm concerned, the Taliban is not my enemy. Here is a man who glories in the issue of terrorism. He supports it, he suborns terrorism, and he should not be welcome on these shores. You can read it, as I said, just Google his name and it will come up. He says, and he was clear as a bell, how proud he was of giving tens of thousands of British pounds to groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. If that's the kind of aid that he's giving, one can imagine what that money is being used for. Secondly, I guess the whole thing comes down to what we here in Canada think is appropriate, not appropriate. We have our own Canadian soldiers fighting right now in Afghanistan, and here is a man who would prefer to support the Taliban, the terrorists that are actually killing Canadian soldiers, than supporting Canadian soldiers themselves. It's absolutely outrageous, and the decision made today by the Canadian government is the correct decision. We can choose who we want to bring into this country and who has permission to come in here. They have chosen not to allow a man like George Galloway, who spends his time pimping, really, for terrorism, and it's absolutely inappropriate.
So you agree Mr. Galloway should be barred from entry?
Oh, absolutely. I think the decision made by the border security forces here in Canada was the correct one.
George Galloway is a clown.
People who support terrorist organizations financially are inadmissible to Canada. This was the conclusion of our Canadian Border Security Agency officials.
How did he do that? How did he support?
I'll tell you, when they looked at what he's done, they ruled that on a preliminary basis, they made a preliminary ruling that he is inadmissible under our law because of his support for, in this particular instance, Hamas. This is a banned illegal terrorist organization. They're involved in targeting civilians, and they're a racist, anti-Semitic organization.
He's supporting them.
He not only does he support them, he does so proudly and publicly. He admits to, quotes, providing corporeal and material support to Hamas. He was recently in Gaza. He met with the leader of Hamas, provided him with money, provided him with supplies. He doesn't hide this fact. That's all in addition to his rhetorical support for other terrorist organizations like the Taliban, who are trying to kill Canadians.
I'm not sure what message it is that he thinks he's getting out in the long run. The message that I think many Canadians are now beginning to take away, sort of once the dust has cleared and the clouds go and the sun comes out, people are beginning to realize that the message from George Galloway is, please give me your money so that I can give it to Hamas, a terror organization, and of course you all guys all know what they do with the money that we're going to give them. So that's the message here, that George Galloway is an international financier for terrorist causes. That's why he's been kept out of Canada. The issue of genuine relief and aid to the Palestinian people, which is an important one, is something that we all have to address collectively as an international community, but not through giving money to terrorist groups in order for them to fund terrorist causes.
But if he recognizes the government of the Palestinians as being one led by Hamas, does he have a choice but to deal with them directly?
Of course he does. He has a number of choices. He can give money to the Red Crescent. He could give money to the UN that's situated in there in the Middle East, in Israel and in Gaza. There are different, very well-known and credible organizations that he could have used. Instead, he chooses to give it to Hamas, and that's where he has fallen off the edge.
He falls afoul of numerous criteria in our immigration laws.
What sort of criteria are they?
They involve everything from providing material support to terrorist groups, instigating the armed overthrow of foreign governments.
The resistance was landing rockets on Beersheba and Ashdod. You can be sure they'll also be dying in Beersheba and Ashdod.
His unyielding support for the Hamas and the Hezbollah. He is a proxy agent of these organizations. On his very website, he wrote an article where he says, I glorify Hezbollah and I glorify the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah. Also, just a short while ago, he gave money to the head of the Hamas organization in Gaza. And he has given speeches encouraging the building of tunnels and the bombings, and any man who supports Hamas the way he does and Hezbollah the way he does is in favor of educating children to become suicide bombers. He's a danger to this country.
That not only were you the Prime Minister of Palestine, that you are our Prime Minister too.
Hamas and Hezbollah is listed by the Canadian government as terrorist organizations.
Today we are all Hamas. Today we are all Hamas. Today we are all Hamas.
The point is that Hamas says that in their charter that it is their goal to destroy Israel.
My thoughts are this, that freedom of speech is not an absolute. So, unusually, I fully support the British government's decision to ban him and send him back to Holland today. And shame on those parliamentarians, all members of the House of Lords, who were sitting waiting for him with their little film show of their dirty little film.
I have never been in favour of liberalism and free speech. I'm not in favour of free speech, unlimited, untrammelled free speech. I deny you the right to freely speak. I don't believe in that kind of freedom of speech. As I've said many times before, never confuse me with a liberal, because I am not a liberal.
But we arrived on the birthday of the Prophet, peace be upon him.